This video is supported in part by Retro Days, a place for nostalgia nerds to gather, share memories, chat, and engage. Go to retrodays.com or check their YouTube channel linked below.
Don't you know that you're a grown up? No games, no puns. Not allowed if you're a grown up.
Welcome to GenXGrownUp. My name is Mo, and I am a GenXGrownUp. On our channel, I did two previous videos in our Brought to You by Generation X series, one on Ace of Aces, and the other on the Lost World game books. Well, I got the opportunity to speak with none other than the man who created both of those games, Mr. Alfred Leonardi. I had a blast speaking with him, and I also have some exciting news I will share at the end of the interview. I started our conversation by asking, how he came about developing these games.
The idea was born trying to make aircrafts because my father used to bring them home, plastic ones they had in the ready rooms.
Oh, okay.
At the end of the war, they used to divvy them up amongst the guys. And so I played with them as toys early on. Mm-hmm. And a boy she brought to school, because I was teacher, history, and he said, this is a good game, you ought to play it. So it was called Rick Tobin's War. Uh-huh. And we ended up playing Rick Tobin's War ad infinitum after school. And like you said, it's that whole genre thing of Ace of Aces was really born then. I wanted to make a game, and I had a kid who's now quite a successful adventure gaming businessman.
Oh, okay.
And Mr. Kaufman, we would play games together and design them together because he's a very ingenious kid. Mm-hmm. And it was the cockpit of an airplane, and when you played this game, you moved little airplanes on that board into different places according to your maneuvers. Mm-hmm. And the maneuvers that you did had to be adjusted for the maneuvers in juxtaposition each time. So it was an unusual game because it kept working at the simultaneously.
Got it.
And you generally don't get that. But with that game, there was a problem getting behind me. All I had is the cockpit here, and I could see off my periphery, so we had that. Then I tried to make it back here. We never could get the planes to stay where they belonged back there. And dead behind you, forget about it. So I started to put them in books, and I printed them in the classroom. I'd give us reading assignments, which had to be done. Mm-hmm. And while the kids are reading this stuff, I was using a ball of orange yarn and shaving lotion, and I'd use colored dittos, and I built the first book by hand, and It took like a year and a half.
I can imagine. Oh, my God.
And then I took it to a convention. It was my first convention in Cherryfield. I didn't show it to anybody until the last day. I showed it to one guy, and he was like, "I'm gonna kill myself." What
year was that?
It was in 1979.
Okay. Right, because the game came out in 80, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The next year we came and we brought 2,000 units. They were sold the first day. We stood behind our booth and people came and bought the books. And the next thing I noticed was those people were working other booths. So they'd been buying my game, and they were game producers themselves. And then there were these people standing at their booths holding up in the air my little brown books. You gotta get it, you gotta get it. You'd hear them yelling, and they'd point to our booth. Well, they ended up with like 6 deep. We're trying to sell it. There was 3 of us trying to sell books.
Oh, I'm not surprised. I mean, it's such a at the time, especially, it was innovative in his way of playing interactively with somebody else before computers and all that stuff. So I'm not at all surprised you had that kind of reception.
Yeah, well, we were surprised.
So what made you decide to use World War I planes?
I liked World War II because I knew the planes better.
Mm-hmm.
But the World War I was more fanciful. I knew the movies of the time.
Yeah.
And it also made perfect for a game because all the airplanes were not fully developed yet. The concept of aeronautics was just a baby concept. And so a lot of those planes were made stupidly. You don't fly around in a plane that looks like a bathtub.
How did you come up with the actual system? that you use in the Ace of Aces? Like, because that's really the beauty of it. It's the system and how it just works.
Well, I patented that part.
Mm-hmm.
It was done. Um, it's really a mathematical. We could do it on a computer now,
Yeah, yeah,
but back then, nobody had
yeah.
done it. So
Absolutely nobody.
and I didn't know anything about computers, so I built it probably the way my father thought about Dead Reckoning. I had, you have God's view,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've got this pilot's view and
Mm-hmm.
this pilot's view, and they've got to, God's view, it's easy to see where
Right.
everybody goes, but this way it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a template that would allow me to, if I do this with my plane, what happens to the enemy plane? So if I bank to the left and he's out in front of me, I might put my right side to
Right.
him,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so I figured it out on hexes. It was
Okay.
complicated, and took
I,
the,
it plays very simple, but I can imagine that everything that it took to get behind it must have been very complicated.
yeah, it was.
Is there any other games and stuff that you played that kind of like got you into doing this or wanting to design your own?
Yeah, I'm a game designer. I'm not a game player.
Okay.
I can play a game that's been designed
Mm-hmm.
by a game designer, and I can play a game that's been designed by a player. I can tell the difference. Player wants to beat your ass,
Yeah.
but a game designer wants to invent a new way to do things, something that emulates reality generally.
Right.
And so for me, years and years ago, I used to be competitive with Monopoly and things like that.
Yeah.
I got over it because I didn't like being mad at people. I like playing games. And so what I found out was I started changing the rules to everything, and the kids liked it.
So actually, that brings me back to one of my other questions was that one of the things I loved about Ace of Aces and your Lost Worlds games is that luck didn't play a lot of
No luck.
didn't play into it, except for maybe you hope the person would do X, and if that happened, then that was it. But that was really there wasn't any not really the dice rolls or anything like that. Like there was no random factors that would be thrown into it. I assume that was like actually part of your intent of what you wanted to build into that game.
No,
Or
I
that
have a
just sort of came out?
well, it was a result, but
Okay.
it was a result I liked. I liked also the fact that it was simultaneous movement,
Right.
and but luck. I don't roll dice very well. I never did. And so I'd rather be blamed for the mistake than
Right. Then have a dice roll.
play.
Was there anything? So let's talk about Lost Worlds for a second, if that's okay. So with the Lost Worlds games, I remember because when I was playing Ace of Aces, I kept thinking like, wow, this would be great, like in a fantasy combat thing. And then sure enough, a couple of years later, I find, I see Lost Worlds on the shelves there. We bought it immediately. So it's obviously a different kind of mechanic, though, slightly different than what you did for Ace of Aces, because you kind of had the cards now instead. Not everything is in the books anymore. Did you find that to be a challenge to kind of, or what was different about doing something that was more character based than airplanes or mechanical?
Well, I played a lot of the dungeon games,
Mm-hmm.
and so I wanted to make a product that did that. I also, at the same time, wanted to make children's picture books because that's what my master's degree
Oh, okay.
focused on at the end of it, and so I did map movement. In other words, each page was, three-dimensional, standing up, looking at you, right?
Hmm.
But it was built on a God's map.
Okay.
And so each page, you could walk through the world. Just put numbers and paths in the book, and whatever the subject is, you could walk through that world.
Oh, I see.
I made a bunch of books like that.
Okay, kind of like choose your own adventure, sort of.
Yeah, it was. It was
Okay.
definitely. But it also made me think, well, anybody can walk through this world.
Mm-hmm.
And what if somebody just stood in one place and did things? You could show the same thing. So, and then if they're swinging, how do you if they're going to swing a sword or a stick,
Mm-hmm.
and I put that in. And then it caught on to me that it could be very sophisticated because people were talking, oh, let's make a dueling book, right?
Right.
So I started reading up on fencing and trying to collect pictures on fencing. And
Mm.
I wasn't too excited until I thought, what if it was a skeleton?
How can you not? Matter of fact, I have my copy right here.
Yes, my favorite book. Yeah, no, I love that one.
Oh yeah. So was there any direction that you wanted to take Ace of Aces or Lost Worlds in at the time back in the 80s that you just didn't get an opportunity to do?
Well, yeah, I wanted Lost Worlds especially to belong to a world. It's sort of like it's a 10-minute combat,
Right.
and it doesn't. It talks about belonging to different places. Like on the cards, I wrote
Right.
up little things.
The history,
and
the blurbs. Uh-huh.
in the back of the book, I did the same. So I intimate there's a real world out there, and I never got to really do it.
Is that something you're working on right now?
Yep.
Oh, that's fantastic. I was blown away by how many people reached out to me. Oh my God, I forgot all about those. I love those games. I'm trying to find them now. And my old friend called me. He still had his books he wanted to play. I mean, that must be amazing to get that kind of reception, to know that something you created is still being thought about.
Yeah. Well, it's a compliment, and I don't know how to. I'm just like everybody else. I look back at some of the things I've done, and I wonder, how the hell did I ever do that?
I'm glad you did, though.
So I've been playing Irish music on my whistle, so going to and doing Irish dance, and for the last 15 years.
Oh, wow. Looking at things today, with computers and all that stuff now, where do you see, how do you still see a place for your stuff, I guess, in this, how things are today with technology and everything else going on?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we can think of much more sophisticated ways to do Ace of Aces, but when we do, we're apt to lose the point. The point was not to fly the maneuver, but to choose the maneuver, and the plane flies it. And if you were to take that concept further, you'd make an app out of it, and you'd get kids to join, and you'd make up squadrons that they could belong to. And
is that happening? I hope so, because that sounds amazing.
well, I need somebody smart enough to put that together. I mean, I can tell them what I think, but I can't do the electronics.
Yeah, I mean, I say again, that was one of the things I love, like which you just described it perfectly. It's like it's not so much the it's more the strategy thing, the tactical thinking, right? Like, what's my maneuver? The plane will do it.
No, I went to Rhinebeck and interviewed the guy there that used to put all those aircraft back together, the World War planes, and then fly them in a show, an incredible 2-hour show. And so he gave me an interview, and we went over every single maneuver, and we discussed it in detail. And he was repairing a 1918, I forgot what it was, Newport engine at the time. And when we were all done, I thanked him. I was really, really the happiest guy in the world, right? And so I said to my wife, he's done something nice for us. We should do something nice for him. And what he did after the show was go and fly people for, I don't know, it was like $20 or something. And
my God.
Take them up for like 5 minutes. And
kind of like a barnstorming sort of thing.
Well, you just fly along the river. You by Roosevelt's estate and in a big loop, because it was at Rhinebeck. And and like I said, it'd take 5-10 minutes.
Yep.
And then he'd come down, take the next kid. And it was like a 1923 something or other, made in Canada. And so he invited me in. I sat down, and he wouldn't take my money. And he actually stopped the long line that I was waiting and put us in.
Nice. And
we started up, and all of a sudden we weren't doing what I'd been watching him do. He did every single one of the maneuvers except for the emblem.
Oh, wow.
And when we landed, he said, you know what just happened? I said, yes, I do. And I said, you did all the maneuvers except for the emblem.
Right.
You wanted me to do the emblem?
You're like, no, it's okay. I've probably been okay not
You're
doing that
crazy.
one.
In a 1923 aircraft.
Wow. It would have been a thrill, though. It would have been cool.
I put his picture in the back of our book, so if you ever wonder who that guy is.
That's who that is. Okay.
Cole Palin, yeah.
Okay, well, let's go into, again, I want to thank you, but I want to end kind of like, what's next? Like, what's coming up? I heard some exciting things, but...
Well, I want to make a book that does more than fighting.
Okay.
You know, human beings, before they spoke, most likely pushed each other around to get what they wanted from each other.
Yeah.
And somebody invented a system that said, wait a minute, let's talk about it. And so as speech got involved, it really became the tool that separated us from animals, because animals can't hold up their little paw and say, hey, let's talk on this over. You know?
Yeah.
And so I'd like to make a game that does that.
Oh, fantastic. Is that...
And it should work with the Lost Worlds.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That'd be interesting to see how that comes together.
It does. It comes together pretty nice, and just a matter of playing, testing it, and releasing it. I'm way out in front of where the company has to be. So I would love to have Lost Worlds 2, and I have some new concepts that I would like to put into it that it's not in it now. And so we get the old system going. I don't think the old books would necessarily become obsolete. They might, but I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, I think people are willing to, they're okay with that if they're getting something better, you know? So,
yeah,
you know, more exciting, you know, or updated versions of the same characters or something like that.
You're right. I shouldn't be spending my time, patching up something that could evolve into something else.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I can't thank you enough for your time. It's not often you get to meet somebody who created something that you love so much. So thank you very much for that.
Well, I'll tell you what, when in a month or so, when I'm all set with my design, you can come and interview me, and I'll show you how to play my new game.
It sounds like a date, man. I'm there. Fantastic.
And I am super excited to let everybody know that Nova Games is back, and they are re-releasing some of the most popular Lost World game books. If you go to novagamedesigns.com, you'll see about 8 to 10 of the books they have available right now, and they'll be publishing more over time. Plus, if you enter GenX as a promo code, you'll get 25% off. Hope you enjoy the games as much as I do. Take care, everybody.
Hey, you made it to the end. If you liked this video, the best way to say thanks is to watch one more. Here are a couple suggestions that you just might enjoy. And if you love our content, maybe consider becoming a Patreon supporter by following the link on screen.
Unacceptable for grown-ups. Your dinner cannot just be french fries.